Hi, I'm Pam with Crafttown Fabrics, and today we're going to be demonstrating a ruler by Creative Grids, and it's called Cat's Cradle. It has a lot of different blocks that you can make out of it. On the wall behind us is one of the quilts that we have made using this ruler. It has all the instructions on it, what size of blocks to cut, how to trim it up. So let's just get started on that. We're going to be making a 4.5 inch block today. So you're going to need two 2 3/4 inch squares, and then you're going to need two 2 3/4 by 3 3/4 rectangles. And what we're going to do, we're going to flip them right sides together. Okay, let's take these over to the sewing machine and sew them together. And then what we're going to do, we're going to press these. You're going to set your seam, and you want to press towards the rectangle. Now, whenever you sew these together, you're going to alternate the way that they're going. So you're just going to flip that over, and whenever you sew these together, you want to feed them in the machine with the rectangle going in first. That way your seams won't flip on you. Alright. Now, you've got this piece that goes together like that. Before you press it, you're going to fold it in half, and right here in the middle of the seam you want to clip that just down to the seam. That's going to let your seams go in opposite directions. If I can get it apart, there we go. Press towards the rectangle. Now you can see here they're going in opposite directions. Now you have a 5 by 6 inch square. You're going to lay this on there. Line it up. Now here's where your tool comes in. On here you've got a square in here, which is your seam line. You're going to put that right on the square, and you're going to mark your line. I'm using the Frixion pen, and just mark your line. Then you're going to turn it around, and these are going to be your sew lines. Now I'm going to just put a couple of pins in here just to hold it. Now you're going to sew on each one of these lines, and then we're going to trim it apart. Okay, now to make it and trim it apart, you're going to have a line here, the 1/4 inch seam allowance. You're going to lay that on your seam line. And just trim that. Alright, and now you have two pieces that looks like this. And we're going to press them. And now we're going to trim them. So whenever you trim them, you're going to take and line up, since I'm making the biggest one on here, the 4.5, line that up with your square in here. There's also a diagonal line here to keep you all straight. And just trim that off. And then, whenever you go to trim the other side, you want to line up your diagonal line here and have that tip of that square right there on the tip of your block. And you come out with a very nice square. I'll show that one more time. Line up your square in here with your diagonal line and your diagonal line there. Line up your lines here and here and have that just touching the tip of your square, and then trim that off. Then you end up with some very nice squares. Now, if you want to add a square like what's on the quilt, the little butterfly pieces, you would take a 2.5-inch square, mark your diagonal line, and you would sew it on here. Just right across there, right on the line, press it, and iron it back. And that gives you a whole different look. So, it's a pretty neat tool. I really like it. There's a lot of different blocks that you can make out of it. This is another little placemat that we've used with some of our leftover squares. And on the large quilt we also added the flange binding, and I'm going to show that to you in another tutorial. But it just gives it a little bit of punch there. This one we lined up all the way across just in rows. Now on the quilt back here, we have used Summerfest, the fabric by April Rosenthal, and it's by Moda. And we just took and we turned our blocks. Here's one of them that you can see there. And then we just turned these to make our square. And then we ended up with some squares in the middle. And it really turned out pretty with that line. And then we used the white background on the back. So it turned out really nice, and we used the flange border all the way around that also. But there's a lot of different ways that you can turn your blocks to make different designs. So we hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and we'll have one on the binding next. Thank you.